Imagine that everything you know about good and evil is merely scratching the surface of something much greater, older, and filled with unfathomable mysteries. The Sumerian myths, the foundation of so many modern beliefs and religions, hide disturbing secrets about the devil, supernatural entities, and rituals that transcend logic. What if I told you that buried truths in these stories could change the way you view the world? Prepare to explore the occultism and Gnosticism of this ancient civilization, unveiling pacts and invocations that redefine what we believe we know about the supernatural. Now, let's dive in. The Sumerian civilization, considered the cradle of humanity, not only invented writing but also documented the mysteries of esotericism on their legendary clay tablets. In these inscriptions, the Sumerians spoke of entities that embodied both the divine and the diabolical, transcending the material world. Imagine living in a culture where pacts and rituals weren't just stories but accepted practices to deal with the unknown. The Sumerians believed these supernatural forces controlled human destiny. They recorded detailed invocations to establish contact with these entities, proving that their Gnosticism was not merely philosophy but an active part of daily life. Sumerian texts, such as the Enuma Elish myths, describe the intrinsic relationship between man and the supernatural, reflecting a world where both demons and deities coexisted. They believed entities like the Anunnaki influenced the cycles of nature and life. For example, in a cult dedicated to Inanna, the goddess of love and war, rituals were performed that included offerings and sacred dances to invoke her protection or favor. Today, these practices can be seen as the foundation of many modern spiritual traditions. There is something powerful in understanding the origin of these concepts. Did you know that the word devil, as we understand it today, might have roots in misinterpretations of Sumerian entities? They saw demons not just as evil but as guardians and mediators between realms. Imagine the myths surrounding figures like Pusu, who, although a demon, was invoked to protect against even more dangerous forces. This challenges the duality of good and evil in our culture. Could it be that what we call evil is sometimes a reflection of our ignorance about the supernatural? The Sumerians seem to challenge us to reconsider. The Sumerians created symbols and artifacts that channeled the power of these entities. Their sculptures, such as the cylinder seals, contained magical inscriptions that could function as talismans in rituals. Imagine a merchant of the time carrying an amulet with symbols of protection against bad luck or a priest conducting a ceremony with a tablet full of invocations. These artifacts echo the belief that esotericism wasn't something distant but was part of everyday life. Today, similar practices can be seen in modern amulets used to attract good luck. The ancient Sumerians were far ahead of their time. It's fascinating how the concept of pacts appears in Sumerian texts, especially in stories describing agreements between humans and entities to achieve specific goals. In these tales, balance was crucial. Every favor received came at a cost. A famous example is the myth of Adapa, who received divine wisdom but at the cost of renouncing immortality. Were these pacts metaphors for the difficult choices we all face? Or were they records of real supernatural interactions? The wisdom of the Sumerians still inspires reflections on the limits of what we're willing to sacrifice for what we desire. The Sumerian worldview also teaches us about the cycle of life and death. For them, the divine wasn't separate from the everyday. Cults were performed in grand temples like the ziggurat of Uar, which served as a bridge between the earthly and the celestial realms. Each ritual had a clear purpose: to harmonize the human with the divine, protect against demonic forces, or request blessings. Why have we lost this direct connection with the spiritual? The Sumerians remind us that the supernatural doesn't need to be distant, it can be integrated into our daily lives with intention and reverence. As we delve deeper into the Sumerian mysteries, it is impossible to ignore how their stories still resonate today. Many concepts we associate with modern occultism have deep roots in this civilization. When we look at their myths, we see not just stories, but teachings on how to face the unknown with courage and creativity. They teach us that esotericism is less about fearing what we don't understand and more about exploring what fascinates us. With that in mind, let's now move on to the next step in this journey, uncovering the mysteries of Kur, the dark realm of the dead, and its ruler. In Sumerian mythology, Kur was much more than just a realm of the dead. It was a dark abyss that inspired both fear and reverence. This place was governed by unknown forces, often seen as ruthless entities that kept the souls in eternal unrest. For the Sumerians, Kur was not a distant concept but an imminent reality, something that permeated their view of life and death. They believed that upon death, the soul descended into this dark place, where specific rituals could influence the spirit's fate. This belief reinforced the importance of pacts made during life. Funeral rituals played a crucial role in connecting the world of the living to Kur. These rituals were laden with esoteric symbolism, involving offerings of food and drink to appease the entities that ruled the realm of the dead. Imagine a ceremony where the deceased's family recited invocations in hushed tones, illuminated only by torchlight, believing this would soften the passage of the spirit. Today, practices like burning incense at funerals may have similar origins. These gestures remind us of how humanity has always tried to build bridges with the supernatural. An intriguing characteristic of Kur was its ambiguous nature. It was not purely a place of torment, nor was it welcoming. It was a reflection of the Sumerian duality, where both demon and deity coexisted. The souls residing there were condemned to a gray existence, without clear rewards or punishments. This makes us wonder, did the Sumerians understand the afterlife more pragmatically, avoiding the extremes of heaven and hell? This view might teach us something about how we face our own fears of the unknown. After all, what do we truly know about what comes after? In Kur, the figure of Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, became central. She was described as an entity that balanced justice and cruelty, a powerful representation of Sumerian Gnosticism. Her presence in Kur symbolized the inevitability of death and the need for acceptance. In some myths, humans attempted to negotiate with her, offering elaborate rituals to ensure their souls would not suffer. Examples like these illustrate how the Sumerians dealt with the fear of death in practical ways. Could it be that, by exploring these myths, we can find ways to cope with our own existential anxieties? Inscriptions about Kur also speak of pacts made with lesser entities that inhabited the underworld. These forces were often invoked to intervene in the affairs of the living, such as protecting a family or ensuring good harvests. Imagine, for instance, a Sumerian farmer drawing sigils on the ground and speaking words of power to ensure that his land would not be affected by evil forces. Today, similar traditions can be seen in agricultural rituals in various cultures. These acts connect us to the past and show us how esotericism has always been intrinsically linked to daily life. The visual description of Kur on the clay tablets is so rich that it could feature in any modern horror or occult story. It was seen as a place of dust and shadows, where souls wore worn-out clothes and fed on dirt and dirty water. This evocative image was not just a warning about what could happen after death, but also a reminder of the choices made in life. Since the Sumerians viewed existence as a cycle, every action taken on Earth resonated in Kur. Do we still live according to this cyclical view of life? By exploring the mysteries of Kur, we are invited to reflect on how ancient cultures confronted the inevitable. The Sumerians did not seek to avoid death, but to understand its nature and make peace with it. Their stories remind us that the supernatural is not something to fear, but to explore with reverence and curiosity. This leads us to the next fascinating aspect of this civilization, the role of the demon Pusu, who, though frightening, personified the duality between protection and danger. Let's understand how this ambivalent figure turned fear into strength. The demon Pusu, known to the Sumerians as the spirit of the west wind, was an ambivalent figure, oscillating between being a protector and a threat. He was feared for his power to cause sudden destruction but also revered for driving away even more malevolent forces. The Sumerians believed that in times of danger, invoking Pusu through specific rituals could channel his energy for protection. Imagine a farmer, caught in the midst of a sudden storm, raising a prayer to Pusu, hoping the winds would spare his crops. This relationship of fear and gratitude exemplifies the complexity of the supernatural. Pusu's role went beyond mere destruction or defense. He was seen as a mediator between the world of the living and the spiritual realm. Many Sumerian rituals involved offerings of grains or liquids to the wind to appease his anger or gain his favor. These rituals, often conducted by priests, included invocations written on clay tablets, which served as spiritual contracts. It's fascinating to think that modern practices, such as burning herbs to ward off negative energies, may echo ancient rituals dedicated to entities like Pusu. He embodied the uncertainty of the unknown but also the hope for control. Pusu was also associated with travel, as the west wind guided Sumerian navigators and merchants on their journeys. For those setting out into the unknown, invoking Pusu's name before embarking was a common act. It was believed that, if appeased, he could grant favorable winds and protection from storms. For those venturing across the sea, it was almost like carrying a spiritual talisman. Today, who knows, we might apply this mentally, asking for strength to face our own modern journeys, whether physical or emotional. After all, what is the wind but a reflection of the invisible forces that move us? Interestingly, Pusu was also linked to dreams and omens. The Sumerians believed that the west wind could bring visions of things to come, whether good or bad. Often, these messages were interpreted by priests, who performed rituals to determine the meaning of the dream. For example, a merchant who dreamed of howling winds might seek a priest to interpret whether it was a warning or a blessing. This makes us reflect on how we interpret signs in our lives today. Do we pay attention to the currents that guide us invisibly, or do we ignore intuition, as the Sumerians never would? While Pusu was protective, his presence could also be devastating. Ancient texts describe how he was capable of destroying crops, homes, and even lives if not respected. This illustrates the importance of pacts and rituals in Sumerian culture. It was necessary to establish a symbiotic relationship with supernatural forces, and disrespecting Pusu was considered an act of audacity. Imagine living in a time when every wind could be a divine message, something that required immediate attention. The Sumerians' relationship with Pusu teaches us about the delicate dance between respect and audacity. The symbolism of Pusu was also connected to the concept of balance, something fundamental to Sumerian Gnosticism. He was not purely malevolent or benevolent, but a force that reflected the duality of existence. His rituals often included prayers to neutralize unbalanced energies, reminding us that even the most powerful forces can be influenced by human behavior. Imagine using this principle in your life, treating adversities as Pusu's winds, something that, with the right ritual, can be redirected to your advantage. This ancient wisdom still resonates in modern practices of mindfulness and spiritual balance. Pusu, with his ambivalent nature, serves as a reminder that the invisible forces around us don't need to be feared but understood. He represented chaos and order, destruction and protection, all in one being. This multifaceted view of the supernatural challenges the simplistic narratives we often adopt today. And so, as we delve deeper into figures like Lamashtu, the terror of mothers and protectors of children, we see how the Sumerian world shaped our perceptions of the unknown, inviting us to embrace its complexity and learn from it. Lamashtu, a terrifying female entity in Sumerian mythology, was the nightmare of mothers and expectant women. Depicted as a ravenous demon, she was known for stalking pregnant women, stealing babies, and spreading diseases. To the Sumerians, her presence was so feared that specific rituals were developed to protect against her. Esoteric amulets were widely used, often engraved with images of Pusu, who served as a kind of shield against Lamashtu. Imagine a mother carefully placing an amulet under her baby's pillow, believing that such a small object could ward off the supernatural. It was a practice full of meaning. The Sumerians believed that Lamashtu was not only a threat but also a lesson about the fragility of life. Her attacks symbolized the unpredictability of the world, where hidden forces could destroy even the most sacred bonds. Pregnant women were advised to perform daily rituals, involving chants and the burning of aromatic herbs, to purify the environment and drive away the entity. Today, practices such as placing herbs like rue or rosemary on doors are still used in various cultures for protection. The persistence of these traditions shows how the fear of the unknown continues to influence our lives. Interestingly, Lamashtu was not only seen as a destroyer but also as proof of the importance of spiritual alliances. The amulets against her often contained inscriptions invoking not only Pusu but also gods like Enki, in search of balance and protection. These pieces were more than physical objects, they were manifestations of spiritual pacts. Imagine the emotional depth of creating or acquiring something so charged with meaning, knowing that your life and your child's could depend on it. This belief reinforces the connection between Sumerian Gnosticism and the human search for security. Lamashtu was often depicted with hybrid features, such as wings and claws, symbolizing her wild and unpredictable nature. These descriptions were not mere artistic details, they had a purpose. Depicting the demon grotesquely was a way to warn the community about the dangers of the unknown. Today, symbolic images are still used to remind us of dangers, whether spiritual or earthly. Think about how skulls on poison bottles serve as a warning. In a similar way, the portraits of Lamashtu functioned. These images teach us that sometimes visualizing our fears can be the first step in confronting them. The fight against Lamashtu also inspired community unity. When a woman was attacked by forces believed to be hers, the community would come together to perform collective rituals, involving prayers and offerings. These events not only strengthened spiritual bonds but also social ones. After all, facing the supernatural alone was a daunting task. This practice of mutual support can be applied in our lives today. In times of difficulty, seeking support from the community, whether spiritual or emotional, can be the key to overcoming obstacles that seem insurmountable. Ancient texts reveal that Lamashtu was also a figure of respect, as she represented the essential duality of the spiritual world. Like the demon Pusu, she personified the balance between creation and destruction, between fear and learning. Her existence reminds us that the supernatural is not just something that frightens but something that teaches. Could it be that, in facing our own demons, we are also learning about our weaknesses and strengths? The story of Lamashtu suggests that fear, when understood, can be a tool for growth and transformation. While Lamashtu spread terror, her stories also brought a sense of reverence. She was the embodiment of everything beyond human control, but her influence could be mitigated by those who understood the mysteries of esotericism and the occult. This prepares us to explore the fascinating figure of Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, whose reign represented the pinnacle of the balance between life and death. Let us now delve into her story, filled with enigmas and profound lessons about the unknown. Ereshkigal, the enigmatic queen of the underworld in Sumerian mythology, was a figure of absolute power and mystery. She ruled Kur, the realm of the dead, with a strict balance between justice and terror. Unlike other entities, she was not seen merely as evil, but as a necessary force in the cosmic order. The Sumerians believed her presence was inevitable, and in the end, everyone would have to face her. Imagine someone in life seeking rituals and pacts to ensure a fair judgment in her presence. Thus, Ereshkigal became a mediator between life, death, and the supernatural. Ereshkigal's domain was not a place of eternal punishment, as seen in some later traditions, but a space of resignation and balance. Kur was a gloomy environment where souls lived in unrest, reflecting the choices they made in life. To mitigate the sorrow of their loved ones, the Sumerians performed funerary rituals, offering food and jewelry in the hope of pleasing Ereshkigal and bringing peace to the deceased. These practices echo modern customs, such as lighting candles or leaving flowers at graves. They serve as reminders that respect for the unknown transcends cultures and ages. Ereshkigal was often depicted as solitary, ruling the underworld with an authority that carried both weight and isolation. Despite her power, her story was marked by personal tragedies, such as her separation from the world of the living. This made her a complex figure, both feared and understood. The myths surrounding her inspired reflection on the role of isolation in power. Today, we can see this narrative in leaders who bear great responsibilities. Like Ereshkigal, they must balance the burden of authority with the need for human connection. One of the most famous myths involving Ereshkigal is her interaction with her sister, Inanna, the goddess of fertility and war. When Inanna descends to the underworld, Ereshkigal subjugates her, showing that not even immortals are above her laws. This episode serves as a powerful reminder of the inevitability of death and the need to accept the cycle of life. For the Sumerians, this myth symbolized the balance between creation and destruction, central elements of their spiritual worldview. It's interesting how, even today, we seek ways to understand and accept these dualities in our own lives. The rituals to appease Ereshkigal were as detailed as they were fascinating. Many involved specific chants, invocations, and pacts to ensure the dead were treated with dignity. Some texts mention that even kings performed these rituals, reinforcing the idea that no one was above spiritual forces. Today, we can learn from these rituals the importance of respecting both the living and the dead. Sumerian practices show us that honoring the past is a way to build a more balanced future. Even small gestures, like revering our roots, can bring harmony. The symbolism of Ereshkigal goes beyond the underworld. She represented the ability to accept loss and transform pain into wisdom. By meditating on her figure, we can see how Sumerian occultism taught us to face the unknown with courage. For those who believed in the importance of pacts and rituals, she was the guardian of deep secrets that could only be revealed to those who confronted their fears. Today, we can use this principle to reflect on our own journeys. What are the underworlds we must face to achieve growth and self-awareness? While Ereshkigal remained an immutable force of destiny, she also symbolized the idea that every end is a new beginning. Her presence in the Sumerian pantheon is a reminder that the forces of occultism and esotericism should not be feared but understood and respected. Thus, we conclude our journey through Sumerian myths with the wisdom that the supernatural is not just a reflection of the unknown, but an intrinsic part of the human experience. How about exploring these stories more deeply and seeing how they can transform the way you view your own reality? The Sumerian myths, full of symbolism and profound teachings, show us that the supernatural is a force both terrifying and revealing. These stories invite us to reflect on how we handle the unknown in our lives. What pacts have you made with yourself? What rituals do you perform to find balance and strength? What can you learn from these entities that the ancients revered and feared? If you want to continue diving into this fascinating universe, subscribe to the channel, activate the notifications, and leave the keyword revelation in the comments to manifest wisdom and prosperity in your life. Let's uncover the mysteries of the occult together.